Hello YouTube, and happy Labor Day. Doing a couple more things to the Corvette while I have time off. Took the center caps off because they were making noise, and I'm going to have to figure that out. I don't want to run it without them, but I'm not going to listen to that. Rotated the tires on it. Had a vibration in the front left tire, so I moved it to the back. I think the tires may be flat spotted from the car having set so long. So I'm going to see if that is the case, see if I can get the vibration to move to the back. And I don't know, these tires are not in bad shape, but they're probably 11 years old. They're Falcons, and I really don't want to replace them right away. There are other things that I want to do to the car before I get into doing that. You know, I may even put different rims on it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do there. But one of the things I'm going to do this afternoon is I am going to unbypass my throttle body coolant hose. I'm getting an issue at low RPMs. It'll pop once in a while out of the throttle body. You've got a temperature sensor in your throttle body. I think there's 3 on here total that do different things on the engine. And what I've learned is the tune port injection is very finicky. You got to be careful on what you do. So I think the combination is, for me, is just to run 160 degree thermostat and then set my fan where it comes on at about 200 degrees, and then go ahead and run the coolant back through this to get rid of that pop out of the throttle body there. I think that's going to help, and so I'm going to do that. And also saw another thing on YouTube that someone did to open up the air breather and get more air into it. I think that will help. This is located in a strange place as far as I'm concerned. It's in front of the radiator. There's not much air, you know, available there. There's no opening in the hood or anything like that. But I do know that the tune port injection, it was designed and is set up on the computer to run the coolant through this. I don't recommend bypassing that. I've said that before, but you know, I just hung in there with it for a while. So I went on to AutoZone and I got my little bypass hose. I'm going to put it back on. Another thing I was going to show you, I found a website, TPIS, and they have really got some cool stuff on here for your C4s. If you've got the money, I mean, they have got some cool stuff on here. You could very easily spend in the right kind of money, like this little mini Ram for $895, and you'll see a lot of people that have done this. You know, that's a whole different system there, and you'd have to replace your fuel rail, which is another $400. I mean, if you had thousands of dollars to put in this thing, you could make a monster just out of the L98. But we're gonna get started, and I'm gonna do a cutaway on the airbox to get more airflow in. I looked at the K&N air filters, and they're about 75 bucks a piece. So I'm gonna wait a little bit before I purchase one of those, but we'll probably end up going with one of those eventually. I'm gonna start here and just take the airbox off. And I'll show you what we're going to do. You see how this is all foiled up here? There's a whole lot of space here. We can come in and cut this out, and I saw this fellow did this on YouTube, along this leading edge here, and open all this up and probably get, you know, 60% increase in airflow just coming into our regular STP air filter. So that's my mission on that. Okay, looking at this, you can see that the seal is actually on the very edge of the outside. So, you know, your filter stops about right here. You could literally come back and cut this thing out that far, and you're still sealed up. You know, it's probably not even going to dirty the filter up any worse. It's just unbelievable how limited that is, and I agree with this one modification. The more air you can get in and the more air you can get out, that's where you're going to make horsepower without getting into a whole lot of money. So I'm going to take this off and kind of decide where I'm going to cut it. If I'm going to go all the way to the outer edge, probably not. Probably come into this leading edge here and just cut right on the outside of here. And I'm going to tape it off and mark it. And then I'm going to tape it down to this board here so it doesn't move. And I'm going to take an angle grinder and just cut it out. Okay, you can get a better idea here. Anything that's on the inside of the blue is coming out. It's not going to affect the retention of the filter. All it's going to do is open up all the space to allow air to come in. You've got your pleated areas here, and eventually I will get a K&N filter that you can just hose out and replace this factory filter. Alright, much better. Safety glasses, that's a must. I can feel bits of metal coming up. Definitely be careful. But one of these thin cut-off blades, it's a 4.5 inch Chicago Electric. They're not that expensive, $13. And I probably won't use this real often, but that's what I paid for it. And it seems to be working pretty good. And what we'll do once we get this cut out is we'll come back in and file these edges off where it's nice and neat. And again, original steel airbox before. This is the kind of area we're getting. Get rid of that. And this is after. You know, you've got the full range of it. And it seals in back here. So it's not going to create any bad issues other than give you a whole lot more air. You know, it's not going to make it dirtier. I mean, it's just a direct opening there anyway. There's no pre-filter. But if you were to do this and then use like a high flow K&N filter, I think the cheapest I've seen them even in AutoZone was $78 versus probably $13 I paid for this new filter from STP. But eventually we will go with that because they can be washed out, rinsed out, and you don't have to replace them, and they will give you even more airflow. So we're going to get to filing all this down and getting all the burrs off of it, and we'll put our hose on. We'll get rid of this one and take it back into here, and down here we will just run our new hose back, and then we will get better performance out of our stock throttle body. And I'm telling you, don't bypass those. And I'll tell you another fairly cheap performance improvement that shouldn't affect anything negative with the way the car runs. If you watched earlier videos, the ignition control module is in the bottom of the distributor underneath the rotor button. You can get a better ignition control module that will let the spark burn longer, but you would also have to upgrade your coil. You could get a hotter MSD coil that mounts on top of your distributor, that probably wouldn't do you a lot of good unless you had a hotter coil, and it will end up giving you a longer, better spark, and will create better ignition. And we're going to do that. Not this time around. I'll have to order one, because it's the difference in what I spent on this one was probably 17, 18 bucks at AutoZone, and the performance ones are, you know, anywhere from $50 to $80. But, you know, again, those are some of the smaller things you can do that will keep your car stock and keep it running right. Because I'm telling you, this TPI system is very finicky, and I've had to find that out. So there's not a lot that you can do. You can port them, you can do this, you can do that. There's some computer modifications you can do. And again, look at that TPIS online, and look at some of the products they have for the L98. You can build a whole lot of horsepower just by updating your plenum and your throttle body. They make all kinds of cool parts, but you're going to start really dropping some bucks once you put those things into it. And of course, if you do upgrade your plenum and intake to like a mini ram system, is what they got that I like, that I'd love to have. It's about $890, plus you'd have to replace the fuel rails, which is another, I don't know, $200 or $300. The more air you put in, the more you have to get out. So what you would have to do is consider, you know, getting some full-length headers for it, true dual exhaust all the way out the back, getting rid of the catalytic converters. They make systems that will work with the catalytic converters, but I'm going to tell you, I'm not so worried about that with mine. And my smog pump is making a noise now. They also make a idler pulley that you can put in place of that and bypass that. That gets rid of all this stuff. All this stuff along. If you put the headers on it, you're not going to want the preheaters. What this does is these things come down and preheat the catalytic converters up so that they heat up quicker, and it's all just emission stuff. So, you know, you really have to research what you're doing. One thing can't go without the other for the most part. The more air in, the more air you want out. But, you know, research is key on these. You can build a whole lot of horsepower out of these L98s, more than I thought, just from bolt-on stuff. So we may or may not do that in the future. There's a lot more we're going to do. Basic maintenance. We will end up pulling this transmission or the engine and replacing that rear main seal. We've got to still pull the main drive shaft and replace the U-joints and get it balanced. There's several things that are to come that we're going to do that are going to improve, you know, your C4 Corvette with high miles on it. And you can see here, I've just got a file with a handle on it. These are cheap. This one's got a curved edge too, so it's even kind of easy to get in the corners. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking the burrs off, so if you reach in, you're not going to get cut or anything. And you could also sand this up and paint it back black or red or whatever you wanted to do, but it's not that complicated. And you can kind of shape up also where you may have cut a little unevenly or something. We did pretty good here though. But I'm just going along. About earlier, TPIS, they even make an airfoil that splits the air as it goes in there, that bolts right in there, and I think it's 40 bucks, but they're talking 10 more horsepower out of that, so that's crazy. You can see right here where I bypassed it, where the inlet is, and then right here is where the outlet is. I've broken my clamp off, and there's a quick trick anytime you try and break loose hoses. Give them a twist. I can't do it with one hand, but that way you won't break the hose. Anyway, you get the idea. All right, we got our hoses back. Good advice: don't buy the cheap hose clamps from Harbor Freight. They're clamped, but they want to slip when you get there, and you know, you always want to make sure your nut ends up where you can access it. So we're running back through the throttle body, and I had a little bit of flat black paint after I filed down the edges. I just kind of hit the edges with some flat black paint so that it wouldn't rust. But now all we gotta do is put the air breather back on and wipe up where our fingerprints are. And since it's Labor Day weekend, we will probably test drive it tomorrow. And there's our air intake box after we put it all back together, and nothing wrong with that. Looks fine. Going to get a lot more air that way. And I'm just going to let it run for a minute, make sure we've got no leaks or anything. Let the thermostat open up on it. I think we've got everything good and tight. We'll let it warm up here, and we'll just check the throttle response on it and see if I can tell any difference sitting here. Yeah, we're getting a temperature there, and I'm going to tell you, there's our fan. I can tell a big difference in throttle response. I did two things. I ran the coolant back through this, not as hot as it was with a 190-degree thermostat, and we opened up our breather box. And just by sitting here and revving it a couple of times, I'm going to tell you, it's a lot more responsive. It did something. We'll test drive it in the morning. Okay, as always, we have to do a test drive at the end of all my videos, and I don't mind. I love driving this thing. And I told you earlier in the video, I took the center caps off because they were chattering. They were making noise. I'm gonna have to find a way to. I'm gonna have to torque them down tighter, or find some way to make them where they don't chatter. It's hard to see what's going on when they do that. But this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a test drive, and we're gonna go over and feed Bubba. Bubba is my wife's horse. She works nights, I work days, so that's what we're going to do. And this is my little, I can't think of what it's called. It's a Chinese knockoff of a GoPro, but it actually works pretty well. The car seems to run better. I don't know if it's the fact that, I think it mostly is the fact that I ran the engine coolant back through the throttle body. I drove it a little bit earlier, and this thing just jumped sideways unexpectedly. But I don't want to get a ticket, but I'll go ahead and set her to recording. We're gonna drive it anyway. Oh, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a shot of power here. This thing seems to be running a lot better, and I assume it's from both opening up the airflow and also making the throttle body tune right. Let's see, Bubba's about 22 years old, and he was losing weight over where we had him boarded. So we brought him over to my wife's brother's house. He's got a little pen here, and loaded him up with some nutrients, a couple of round bales of hay. What are you doing, Bubba boy? What are you doing, Bubba boy? Yes, yeah. He knows what's up. Let's feed him. But he's put quite a bit of weight on. I mean, he looks seriously 10 years younger after having feeding him sweet corn and alfalfa pellets. He's actually fat going into winter here, though. It's not a bad thing. We need to ride him and put some muscle on him. Don't we, buddy boy? Don't we, buddy boy? He's a good boy. He's an aggressive eater. He does not like me messing with him when he's eating. Do you, buddy boy? Come here. Yeah. He's getting to trust me. He's a good boy. You better appreciate who feeds you. But we're gonna come over, I'm gonna come over one day and saddle him up and just ride him around the property. Margaret's brother has quite a bit of property just here in town. Can you see that? That's Margaret's other brother's toy he's set back and storing. It's a Hurst Olds. Boy, I'd love to have that one. All right, buddy boy. Be good. Be a good boy.
Oh, I'm getting hungry.
the vibrations coming from the rear end now. It's definitely the tires. We're getting more vibration from the tires than we are the drive shaft, but it helps me just to move the tires to the back to find out for sure where the vibration is coming from. Tires are the biggest part. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.